Amen and amen. That was pretty darn cute. Today I want to start by lighting our Advents. We are on week 3 of Advent, and this next week we will hopefully be experiencing a lot of joy, which is our next Advent calendar. If we haven't met, my name is Becca. I'm one of the pastors here at Court Street, and I'm so excited to be bringing you the message today. But I will tell you this, Christmas, even though it is my favorite time of the year, it's a little bit chaotic. I don't know if you are the person in your house that does all the decorating, all the shopping, all the menu planning, anybody relate with, like, there's a lot more to do. And then when you're on staff at a church, there's a lot more events that happen, which are planning and more things on your calendar. And so if you don't know me personally, I tend to lean actually more on the introvert side of the world a little bit. And I like things like my favorite sound in the world is quiet. And maybe a close second would be the sound of my coffee dripping into my cup on my coffee maker. That might be a close second. And so this time of the year seems to just be, it's a lot. It's intense. And so what did I do this year to add more peace to my life is on top of the 2 dogs, on top of the children, I added a cat. I got a kitten. And my little cat, I have a picture of her, and right? And I brought her here today. I know. It is a Christmas miracle. Oh my goodness. I know. You guys, this is Wendy Darling. And she loves all the ornaments. Her favorite hobbies are finding things that could kill her and playing with them. And I tried to wrap a present with her around, and that was a scary ordeal. I had sharp scissors. She thought the ribbons were all for her. And so that's what I'm adding to enhance my season, and we brought her here today to enhance your joy as well. So there's Miss Wendy Darling. Isn't she great? All right. Christmas. I will tell you, this year, to set up our hearts as just a church and a congregation for what Christmas could mean to us, we have been doing a sermon series called Starry Nights. And really, we're taking a play on the way that navigators use stars in their life to find out where they are, where they're heading, and kind of get them back on track. We're using that as kind of a metaphor to kind of look at some of those things that Christmas represents to us, and taking some time each week to see how we can use those words, those phrases, to help get us back on track a little bit. And so today, the word that we're going to be exploring is the word peace. And I'll tell you, the biblical meaning of peace, or what I mean by peace, isn't just that everything in your life is going perfect, but the word peace really means that we feel whole. We feel complete. There's a steadiness to us. And my guess is that when I even talk about that definition, there's a longing in all of us to have that as our core, to feel like we're okay and our relationships are okay. But the truth of the matter is that we live in a world full of conflict, full of it. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about how we can use peace in our life as kind of a guiding light, something that we are aiming for, even in this world so full of conflict. So, hundreds of years before Jesus was ever born, there was a prophecy about a child that would be born, that the whole world would celebrate in a way that it would bring peace to people's lives. And it's found in Isaiah, and I want to read it to you here this morning as we think about the Christmas story. The prophecy says this: "For unto us a child is born, a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father," and the last one, a Prince of Peace. A Prince of Peace. And then we know this, that in a little town in Bethlehem, a baby was born outside in a barn to an unmarried mother. And this baby Jesus would grow to give humanity the biggest gift that we've ever received. Jesus said that if you want to know what God is like, who God is like, then all you need to do is look at the life of Jesus. And so he came to be one of us so that we could actually, as a people, understand the mysteries of God, to understand what it is, what we should be aiming for as a human, to live and have relationships on this earth. That is why Jesus came, and he came as a baby. And the story starts to unfold because Jesus grows up, and he offers salvation to the world in a way that is surprising. The people at the time, they were expecting a warrior to come, a king to come, somebody to raise up an army and attack their oppressors and to make life better for them. They were expecting a ruler in that way, and instead, Jesus did not raise up any army to conquer people. Instead, he was a healer. He was a forgiver. And he was a teacher to teach humanity a new way to move in the world. And he started teaching things like this out of Matthew 9. Blessed be the peacekeepers, for they shall be called the sons of God. And then he'd say things like this. In John 14, peace I leave with you, my peace I give you, not as the world gives you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. And then like a balm to our soul, one that I go back to over and over again, he says this, it's almost like the sound of dripping coffee to me. I have said these things to you so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Jesus came making peace between us and God, and the way he did it was to reveal that God isn't a faraway, distant, angry God. God is a God that comes close to us. God is a God that is for us. God is a God that we can rely on in our darkest, deepest, most vulnerable moments. God is a healer and a forgiver. And Jesus came to show us that. And so, he came teaching us how to live peaceably. He modeled it to us, how to be a good human to one another. And so we learned all those lessons. And so how are we doing? Everyone good? Relationships? Everyone thumbs up? You got all those figured out? Wade's doing this. I know. He came, he taught, we saw, we've been studying these scriptures our whole lives. They've been passed down to us. And yet still there is so much conflict in the world. I would say that watching the news and seeing the atrocities of wars that are happening, I would say looking at the humanitarian problems that we have all over the world, I would say that we look at our world and we are just bathed in conflict, aren't we? And it's frustrating because it feels like, what am I even to do? I can't make these world decisions that are going to solve all these problems. And so we watch these things, and a lot of times, if you're like me, I turn off the TV or I stop scrolling, and I just feel hopeless. It just feels like a lot. And yet, our calling is to be a people of peace. And for that to be our aim in life when it comes to how we walk and how we engage in the world. But at the same time, I just have to say, with all the things we can't control, one of the things we can control, or at least try, are the relationships that we have just in our sphere of influence. And if you really want to make a difference in the world when it comes to peace, I will promise you, you have opportunities within an arm reach of each other. Someone probably drove you here to church today, that would give you an opportunity to practice what it means to be a peacemaker. We have opportunities right in front of us. And honestly, if I think of the most hurt that I have in my own life, it comes because of a conflict that I have with somebody that I love. Those types of things are the things that keep me up at night. And really, if I want to get really practical, I've heard from many of you just since Thanksgiving that Thanksgiving was really hard with family. The people that are supposed to love you and be supportive of you and whatnot, even that beautiful meal was interrupted by conflict. And so I just want to get really practical today because we see this heartbeat of Jesus' ministry, this peace that we're supposed to aim for. And I hope that some of you have a few people in your life that you feel truly at peace with, that you feel completely yourself, that they feel completely yourself, and that relationship, it's just like butter on toast. You know, it's just perfect. I hope everyone has been able to experience at least a few relationships like that. But really our calling and what I want us to think about today is the relationships that aren't going that way. And what do we do with them? What do we do with them, especially when we care so much? And so I want us to look at a chart. I found this incredibly helpful. Maybe you will too. But let me read this to you. It's a little bit hard to read from the stage here. But honestly, we as humans have some tendencies when it comes to conflict and how we're going to deal with them. There's one tendency that I'm going to be calling the peace faker. And I will be really honest with you, this is my tendency. This is where I go when things get a little sticky and it feels a little bit hard and there's a conflict that happens. Peace faking, well, what we do is we put our head in the sand and we say all the things that the other person wants to hear, and we shove a cookie in their mouth when it gets too hard, and then we'll probably shove a cookie in our mouth because that feels better. And we just want to make it stop, make the conflict stop. We just want to avoid it. Crank up the Christmas music, please. Everything's fine. Let's just avoid it. We will just keep the peace if we don't talk about it. You don't have to confess it, but does anybody fall into that category with me? Okay, good. I'm not alone. All right. So that is a way to deal with conflict. The problem with it is that when you are a peace faker, you actually do not experience peace for yourself. You're not being honest with what's going on in your life. You're not being honest about how it makes you feel when that person treats you this way or what it feels like to be on the other side of that person. It's actually creates avoidance and a breakdown of the relationship when we deal with conflict this way. And then there's this other side of the spectrum, and I'm calling it peace breaking. And you know who you are. Your tendency when conflict arises, your tendency is confront them. We have to just tell them the facts. We're going to sprinkle a little shame on it if that makes it work a little bit better and for our advantage. We're going to talk behind their back so we can build more people on our team. We are going to fight, attack. This is how we make peace, is we just make people think the way we think. Right? How's that going for you? So, there's also peace breaking that we fall into. This category where it's just like they can't let anything go. Every time you see them, this particular subject comes up, and it just feels like they're always breaking the peace. And maybe that's where you land when conflict comes up in your life. And honestly, probably helped you survive your childhood, right? There was probably something in you where growing up as a kid, this is how you made it. You made it by either being a peace faker or a peace breaker. And now we're sitting here today and we can take a big deep breath. We can be honest with ourselves about where we fall on these categories, and we can consider today what it might be like in our lives and in our relationships if we started to nudge towards this beautiful middle ground called peacemaking. Peacemaking. It requires honesty. It requires courage. It's risky. And a lot of times it doesn't work out. That's the truth of it. But I hope that some of you have experienced the miracle, and sometimes it's supernatural, of what it's like to have a conflict with someone that you care about enough to talk about it, and for you to leave that conversation with a deeper respect, a deeper understanding, and honestly a truer connection with that person. That is honestly the heartbeat behind peacemaking. And it is possible. It's possible, especially if both parties are on board with that. And there are times when these things, you put your best effort forward, but yet still a divorce happens, still a friendship is over, still the work that you left, were fired from, head down, didn't work out. Those things still happen in life. And what I want to say to that is we've all experienced that kind of hurt. And there still is a way, even in those really dark circumstances, to still aim for peace. And what I would propose to you is that person that hurt you, that thing that happened, that ended the relationship, you can still carry around, even in your heart and your attitude when you think about them, that you wish them well. That's powerful. That's powerful for you. It's not a magic spell you're putting out there. It's actually something that's powerful and healing in your own heart to actually wish them well. I'll tell you another thing that is good is to stop gossiping about it. Right? Like there's something powerful to say like, I'm no longer going to continue to drag their name under the mud when I don't need to. When it's not in a counseling situation or it's not in a healing situation for me, I'm just going to stop doing that. That is a way to kind of engage this beautiful peacemaking ability that you can have in your life. Honestly, to me, what this requires, it can be different for all of us, but I would say like a place to start would be just in making a decision that you're going to put the person above the issue. This isn't about like forcing change on someone, something that you feel needs to be changed. But honestly, if the relationship is going to continue and you're seeing things differently and there is conflict, what if you just made a decision? What if you just made a decision that you wanted to have an attitude that their human intrinsic value was more important than blank? It was more important than who they voted for. It was more important than the outfit that they chose to wear to church. It was more important than the behavior that they're engaging in that you just find abhorrent. What if you put their humanity above all of that? That alone is a game changer in your relationships. And then I would encourage you, I don't even have time to share all of the resources, but there are so many resources out there, great books you could lean into. Maybe this requires a season of counseling. Maybe this requires making an appointment with a pastor, whatever you feel like is the right next step, just to gain some tools. Because we all have to say, too, that there is a time, and hopefully it's infrequent, when you have to let the relationship go. When there's a time when it's like you've put everything forward that you could, but there is something unhealthy enough in the relationship that it's not going to move forward. Those are the things that are sensitive and they're tricky waters to navigate. And I would encourage anyone in those positions to just slow down, have a posture of peace, and do the work that it requires to either save the relationship or let it go in a peaceful way. Peace to me, when it happens, when the relationship gets mended and you leave having a greater understanding of one another, peace when that happens to me, it all points to the future that we're hoping for. If you're a Christian, I will say that our great hope is that we one day are going to live in complete peace. One day it is going to be a time when there are no more wars, there are no more tears, when people are going to be made whole and you're going to meet that person on the other side of this and have the beautiful relationship that you've always craved for. That's our big hope. And there's this verse in Isaiah that is particularly precious to me. I have a husband in law enforcement and now a son in law enforcement, and I can say that just as a family between my husband and I, this verse is something that, like, when it all just feels too much, I love to lean into this so that I can refocus what our big hope is. It says this is also back in Isaiah. He'll show us the way he works, talking about God, so we can live in the way we were made. He designed us to live in peace. Did you know that? That's why it feels so bad to be in conflict. Zion's the source of the revelation. God's message comes from Jerusalem. He'll settle things fairly between the nations. Listen to this and take a deep breath with it. He'll make things right between many peoples. They'll turn their swords, the instruments that they use for war, says they'll be turned into shovels, their spears into garden hose. Those types of things are things that help humanity. They grow humanity. Those are the things we rely on as humans to feed us, to nourish us. So the weapons of war, that one day they're going to be turned into garden tools. Can you take a deep breath with that? Like, what an amazing, aim to be moving towards. No more will nation fight nation. They won't play war anymore. Come, family of Jacob, Christians, believers, let's live in the light of God. It ends with such encouragement. I know things aren't going to be perfect right now, but this is the way forward. In the 80 years that we have here on this earth, living here, and the handful of relationships that we really care about, the way forward to create peace among us is to live in the light of God and have peace be our aim. That image to me is almost so wonderful. It almost feels like a fairy tale sometimes. But I will tell you that I heard a story and really researched it this week that gave me this little glimpse of what this could look like because it happened. And I want to take you all the way back to 1914. It was actually the same year this church was built. 1914 was World War I. And on the western front of the battlefield, where you had the Germans in one trench, and you had the Allied soldiers in a trench across from them, in the middle was no man's land. And on Christmas Eve, the opposing troops started singing Christmas carols. And then they started singing them so loud that the other troop could hear. And there was this echoing, and a choir started to begin against the other troops. And that morning, two brave soldiers, one from the German troop, one from the Allied troop, stood up and met in no man's land and agreed to have a truce for Christmas Day. They were going to put down their weapons, they weren't going to fight, and they were going to celebrate Christmas together. And so out of the trenches, men arose, and instead of exchanging gunfire, these two opposing countries, wars, the whole world involved, started exchanging gifts in the form of cigarettes and booze and whatever they had to give them some comfort. And one soldier even gave and offered haircuts to anyone who needed them. And we know this really happened because we've collected their journal entries from both sides, and the story corroborates. And so I want to read this one journal entry to you from a German soldier. He said this: "Eventually, the English brought a soccer ball from their trenches, and pretty soon a lively game ensued. How marvelously wonderful, and yet how strange it was. The English officers felt the same way about it. Thus, Christmas, the celebration of love, managed to bring mortal enemies together as friends for a time." Isn't that amazing? And then it says this. I found another journal entry that I found really interesting. "For those who participated, it was surely a welcome break from the hell they had been enduring." And then it got me thinking, there were some men that day that didn't participate in the joy that was happening in no man's land. And I don't blame them. Honestly, like if I put myself in their shoes and I think this could be a trick, I've suffered severe trauma, I have great compassion for them, but also what a missed opportunity. What a missed opportunity for them to just take a deep breath and see a fellow human that didn't speak the same language as them, didn't have the same passions of why they were fighting in this war, to be able to come and see each other just as human and human. What an opportunity missed. And it inspired me to think about, what are the opportunities I'm missing? What am I missing with a relationship that I've written off and thought it's just too hard? It's just not possible. And certainly in really extreme cases, that is the truth. But for most of us, the hurt that we're experiencing in a relationship that we ache to fix, we can do something about it. We can start the conversation. We can lean in with a lot of love, a lot of compassion, carefully chosen words, extend the olive branch, and maybe experience a peace that is so contagious that you want to do it again, that you stop looking at conflict as something that is scary. And can you imagine if conflict arose, you started realizing that it's an opportunity for growth? It's an opportunity for your relationship to be stronger? I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it. It's an opportunity. And so with that, I'm going to invite the worship team up because we're going to sing one more hymn together. We're actually going to sing a song that was one of the carols that we know was recorded in that day, where they sang the first Noel to each other. And the first Noel is all about that first Christmas. That first Christmas when the angels ripped the sky open and they made this announcement: peace on earth, goodwill to men. They made a beautiful announcement that honestly has worked itself in every generation as generations of people have tried to work that out in their own lives, and we're doing what we can to work that out in our lives. So this morning, we're going to sing this carol, and I also invite you to take communion together. And if you haven't been to Court Street before, I will just tell you that the way we do communion is we have stations that are located around the sanctuary, these barrels. And in it, you're going to find 2 cups that are stacked on top of each other. This first cup, what it does is we do this every week where we drink it and we're reminded of Christ. We're reminded about the life that he came and he lived. And I'll tell you, peace is risky because Jesus lived this very peaceable life. And honestly, it didn't work out very well for him. But he rose from the grave. His story lives on. He lives inside of us to teach every generation a new way to be. So we take the cup and we drink the juice in remembrance. And then we take the bread, which is located in the bottom cup. It's another remembering of his real physical body that came here that came here and lived a different way. And so every week at Court Street, we take this as we remember the chance that we have to be a different kind of human, the chance we're all invited to be, to know that God came near, that he's for us, that he wants peace between you and him, and he wants peace between us. So with that, let's sing this first carol and have communion together when it feels right to you.
The first Noel, the angel did say, was to certain poor shepherds in fields where they lay, in fields where they lay, keeping their sheep on a cold winter's night that was so. Born is the King of Israel. They looked up and saw a star shining in the east beyond them far, and to the earth it gave great light, and so it continued both day and night. Noel, 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 Noel. Born is the King of Israel. And by the light of that same star, 3 wise men came from country far to see, for a king was their intent, and to follow the star where'er it went. Noel, 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 Noel. Born is the King of Israel. Noel, 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 Noel. Born is the King of Israel.
Jesus left us with some final thoughts on this, that he still is ministering us today. He says this, "Now may the Lord of peace himself give you peace at all times in every way. The Lord be with you all." And I want to say this to you right before we leave, and I'll pray over us, is that we have an opportunity where our Christmas tables could look different than maybe our Thanksgiving tables. And I want to challenge you with this, is that when we asked non-Christians what they thought or understood of Christians themselves, what if they were quick to answer that, oh, Christians, well, they're people of peace. Oh, the Christians in my life, when I'm around them, I feel completely whole in myself. Can you imagine if that's how the world interacted? So if you think that we can't maybe solve all the global issues, I just challenge you, if you just look at your few relationships that you know need some fine-tuning, this will change the world, honestly. I'm going to be looking at mine a little bit closer. I hope that this week you look at yours a little bit closer, and let's just honestly, and I know this sounds cheesy or cliche, but that would be honestly the best gift we could give our loved ones this year. Let's pray. God, when it comes to this topic, we need you. We need this tenderness that sometimes is hard for us to access. We need healing in our own lives of the wounds that we're carrying around, that some of the people that were supposed to love us the most or cherish the most inflicted on us. We need healing. And God, we need courage. Courage to sometimes pick up the phone or send the text or have the conversation, get it started. And God, we need humility when we need to go back to the people that we know we've wronged and say it. So God, be with us. Be tender with us as we move throughout the world. May our relationships be strengthened because of the life that you taught us to live. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Peace be with you, church.